is very difficult to achieve. Fitness 100% is just one sub-component of health. Fitness does not mean health. Health is just too broad, encompasses everything. Are you sleeping enough? Mentally, how you're doing? Way more than having a six-pack. I used to believe in excellence, be the best, push yourself to do difficult things. Now I've realized it's about being useful. Try to use excellence towards societal benefit.
So in your book, you claim yourself to be a perceptionist and not a perfectionist.
Perception is more around, I want to change the way people think about things. That's why I use that term. I think I was also थोड़ा cool बनने के लिए भी थोड़ा आसान करना.
Revant, or FoodPharmer as most of you know, is everywhere. His cause for health literacy in India is well known. In today's episode, we talk about Revant's early influences, one of whom is Bhagat Singh. Also about how he seamlessly integrates humor into his content. About his thoughts on a brand influencer deal. This and many more conversations about his value systems. This is Hustle for Fame and I'm Anirudh. Let's dive in. Revant, hi. Thanks for being with us. I just want to start by asking, 22-year-old Wall Street job, you had a great social life and no significant worries, right? But you said that you felt some void. And first thing, how do you identify the void? And second thing is, how do you identify that not having a meaning was the reason why I had the void?
That's a deep question. Not too many people have asked me that question. That's interesting. So 22 years. So I was 22 years. So that's 10 years ago. Revealing my age. Anyway, but so that I was like right outside of college. I was like making good money in the US. And that time, you know, if you're slightly philosophical, you can sometimes be like, Arey, what is the point of anything? What's the meaning of life? And things like that.
Get nihilistic.
Huh?
Get nihilistic, is it?
Yeah, exactly. So that was my thing. Like, you know, I was making good money, but I had a social bent. Like, you know, what is the point of anything? Why am I doing what I'm doing? And things like that. And like, so that's when I, you know, started thinking about, I had also read like a few books at that point. So I had read by Bhagat Singh, I had read his letter,
Okay.
Why I Am an Atheist. And he was 23 years old when he wrote it, and I was 22. So the age was very similar. So I think those kind of things just made me into a bit philosophical. Yeah.
And how did you realize that it was a void and you needed meaning? Like you said that it was lack of meaning that created this void, right? Okay, you realized you had a void through this, but how did you know that you can fill that void with a meaning? Or again more of a deeper question.
I don't know how deeply I thought about it back then, but that time it was just, I don't have a good answer.
No mind, we can just...
Cool. I will just keep doing.
Done. So in your book, you claim yourself to be a perceptionist and not a perfectionist, right? And the word sounds very interesting, perceptionist. So can you explain that?
It's a great question, and thanks for asking me this because I've not been asked this before. So perfectionist is someone who's always trying to, as you know, being perfect. But perception is more around, I want to change the way people think about things. The same thing, whether it's religion or food or like you see a dog and you see a chicken, for some reason eating a dog is wrong, eating a chicken is right. So it's perception based on whatever we've been told.
Conventional wisdom.
Whatever we've grown up seeing around us. So that's why I use that term, not a perfectionist, I'm a perceptionist. I think I was also थोड़ा cool बनने के लिए भी थोड़ा आसान करने, because these things sound intelligent and all of that. But the idea is just that there are a lot of things we do. In fact, most things we do is just based on whatever society perceives us. If society perceives us in a positive way, then we'll do it. Or if people will judge us negatively, we won't do it. Again, the same example around dogs and chickens. If society was looking down upon you, if you were potentially eating a dog, we would not have done it because we would have grown up in that environment. Similarly, about so many more things. That's why I think I use that I don't want to necessarily chase perfection. I just rather would focus on perceptionism, which is like trying to change how people view things.
I think which is exactly what you're doing currently, right?
Ah.
Your label padega and all that you're doing. But interesting point you mentioned about dogs and chicken. Again, I throw it straight up to you. Why is that the case? If I eat a dog today, it's some stigma, and whereas I eat a chicken, it's out there everywhere. Oh, you want fried, you want grilled. So there are multiple options, right? Why do you think that there is a stigma or a taboo? Or again, how would you think that this came about?
It's just big because of what is common. It's like, at some point, maybe thousands of years ago, something became more common practice because more people started doing something. And then if millions of people do something, we don't judge it. Then it's like, I say this one thing: what is common does not mean it's normal. And what is normal does not mean, but just because something is common does not mean it's normal. So it's just, we are all like, essentially we just copy each other. So you've grown up in an environment. So as humans, one of our biggest strengths is that we're able to transfer knowledge from one generation to the other. So, and other, I think, species can't do that as much. But because we can communicate, I can teach a baby and then baby will teach his baby and like that. So the collective wisdom passes down. But the challenge of that is that we also copy each other, that, that we see the person before me was doing this, so I will also do that.
Without questioning why.
Without questioning why. And that is the challenge. And most of what we do is based on what we see the 5-6 people around us doing. So right from the religion you follow, to the diet, to how we dress. Like, I am wearing these kind of clothes. If you were based in somewhere else, you maybe are wearing very different kind of clothes. It's just based on what the 5 people around you are doing. And that's eventually the sad part, or whatever. Like, that's what makes us human as well.
Sure. So this whole thing about the 5 people around and you do just the same thing, right? Do you think globalization has changed this rapidly? Because see, I come from Tamil Nadu. There was an incident in a tier 2 town in Tamil Nadu where 10th standard girls escaped their home just to go and meet the BTS band, right? And this is not because the 5 people around them did this happen. So do you think globalization sort of changed this, or what is your viewpoint on that?
It's changing it, but not as much as I would have liked, because I think people still live in their echo chambers, and even the content and algorithms show them what people around them are seeing. So yes, of course, there are examples like that. There's also a slight Western bias, I feel, in some of those things. You don't see someone in Korea, running around, breaking out of their house to follow an Indian. I feel there is little bit of, not Western, but like a foreign bias, I would say, that, people go slightly crazier, I feel, of like, someone celebrity from outside rather than a celebrity from India. Even in India, actually, celebrities, we do worship them as well. But my point I'm trying to make is, people outside, like Americans or Europeans, don't really look up to any Indian celebrity per se. Very few. But coming back to your question, yes, globalization has made a difference. But still, if you notice that we will get the same WhatsApp forwards based on what our political beliefs are and our circles. Depending on which economic strata you belong to, you will get that kind of what your people, your family supports. You'll get that kind of forwards that, this political party is right, this person is right, this sport is good, whatever. So it's helping for sure, but you need to be active about it. You need to proactively. So what I do is I follow people who have different opinions from me. So I tell everyone कि अगर आप BJP supporter हो तो ध्रुव राठी को भी follow करो. और अगर आप दूसरे साइड के फॉलोअर, तो यहाँ दूसरे जो whatever pro BJP वाले हैं उसको भी फॉलो करो, ताकि आपको दोनों साइड की इन्फॉर्मेशन मिले. तो it will be good for you to expand and get both sides of the story.
So I think you mentioned the same thing also in your book, right? Having flexible opinions. So the way in which I look at it is, having flexible opinions mean that you hold 2 opposing or contradicting beliefs at the same time. Then you deliberate and decide, you know what, this is the common point. Why do you think it's difficult for a majority of us to do that?
So it's hard just because I think we've also been, as a society, loyalty has become glorified. That it's very great to be loyal, and when we say loyal, it's not only to another human, but even to your own opinion. So, for example, if someone doesn't change his beliefs, we'd be like, oh, he's great. Like, for example, if you support the same sports team, if you support them for the last 20 years, people will say, oh, you're a very loyal fan. People will appreciate you. But if someone's supporting Manchester United fun and then Man City and then Barcelona, you're like, अरे ये तो fake है. We don't like people changing opinions. Same with so many things that we respect. अरे ये एक बार बात बोल दिया तो वो सही, he'll always stick to that. He won't change his mind. So I think we like that. There are obviously benefits to that. It's not that some people are like, they don't have any ground itself, and I get that as well. But I think it's just that we get uncomfortable with changing our opinion, and also once again coming on the same thing that people around us are all living in that echo chamber, so you're not even built in a way that you're supposed to be flexible. Yeah.
So then how does one break out of this echo chamber, given that it's all algorithms, zeros and ones?
I think some of it comes a bit naturally. Like, some people just are more inclined to be curious, but you have to once again make intentional choices. Like I said, that if you believe in a particular party, can you follow someone from who has a completely different opinion so that you get some information about that? Or same with try to be friends. So I say this one thing, try to be friends with at least one person who's 10 years older than you and 10 years younger than you.
Wow.
Try to be friends with at least one or two people who from a different religion, who are different gender, which is also difficult to do. At least 10-15 years ago, now is I think way more common. And in our parents' time, if you see our dads, like they used to have only boys together, and like now it's changing every 5 years, I would say. So try to be friends with someone who's 10 years older or younger, different religion, different economic group. That's so important. आप इंडिया में कभी भी नहीं देखोगे जो मर्सिडीज चला रहा है वो ऑटोमेटिकली जो बस में बैठ रहा है उसके साथ बहुत कम इंटरेक्शन होता है. लाइक होता भी है तो वो जो होता है ना, यू गो आउट टुगेदर और यू डोंट माइंड कॉलिंग द पर्सन होम, वो नहीं होता है, बहुत कम होता है. So everyone tries to be friends with a similar economic circle, and as soon as they become rich, they forget their older friends and things like that. So I feel these kind of things can really help you get diverse, different opinions, which are very different from what you think. And if I may say one more thing, I recently had coffee with some delivery boys. And they're obviously more than delivery boys. They're like, they also have their own identity besides being delivery boys. But from our angle, we associate them with delivery boys. And some of them were like, one of them was a 10-minute, worked for a 10-minute app, and someone else worked for a 30-minute food delivery app. So the kind of stories what I was hearing from them just completely blew my mind. Like, we are like, when we think of a delivery person, we're like, अरे खाना late क्यों आया? अरे ये ऐसे क्यों हो रहा है? So that really, I think, shapes your perspective about the reality. And you mentioned flexible opinion. That I feel like you see both sides of the story. You meet a super rich person and you understand their perspective as well. And you meet someone from a different economic strata. So I feel that can also help with a flexible opinion.
So one bit of it is you have a solid knack for simplification of content, right? A lot of whatever it is. But more than the simplification of it, it's the kind of quirky humor that you infuse that sort of comes across. Even in fact, in your book also you mentioned about Ekta Kapoor was the only serial entrepreneur you knew before. And now everybody claims themselves to be serial entrepreneur. How did you cultivate this sense of humor? It's very unique and quirky.
Yeah, I don't know how I cultivated it, but I think I've had that sort of a knack, I guess, since probably class 7, class 8-ish. just to have some random jokes here and there. In fact, I remember in an essay I had written some similar-ish lines, and I had got criticized from the teacher that, ye kya likh diya, it's a school essay. But yeah, I mean, I think it just, yeah, I think it's just been there with me since I was relatively young. And the interesting thing is I just try to make sure that it comes across even when I'm talking about serious topics. That is the most important thing. So in that Ekta Kapoor example, I was talking about entrepreneurship, and then I connected Ekta Kapoor somehow. I wrote a chapter on religion in my book. Even there, I was trying to add humor. Even in my current videos, I'm talking about legal notices and things like that, and like fighting with brand, and still I somehow have humor. And that is very intentional as well, because I want it to be relatable to the mass. For example, April 2023, first month of my journey as FoodPharmer, I had received a legal notice. I don't mind naming brands as well. So like from Dabur. And they had asked me to apologize. And I put the apology video. And then simultaneously I added a song, Mujhe Maaf Karna, Om Sai Ram. And that time, like right now, it's kind of like, it doesn't sound like a big deal, but that time, like a week before that, I was all over TV that this guy is, making these controversial videos and things like that. And I got 3-4 legal notices back to back. My family has no idea what I'm doing. Like, it's gone crazy. And then at that time to do this was a very big deal.
It is.
Like now I feel like I have more followers, more support. So yeah, basically the point is when I'm talking about a serious thing, it's very natural for me to have some fun. So that's why I try to do it.
So again, a very hypothetical question, right? You literally burned off all your bridges when you came to India and when you did your first video, right? And so it took off, and we are where we are right now. So what if it's a case where you did the video and the video didn't take off? What do you see could have been the path? Let's say it had like 400, 500 views, not 1,000, not million, just 400, 500.
That's a very interesting question. And to give you some background, 10 years or 8 years, 9 years ago, when my book released, it did not do super well. So it was sort of like, and life continued for 8-9 more years in whatever other path, like, I did MBA, this, that. So if had this also not worked out, I would probably keep doing something or the other. For example, even that time, I wanted to create an app where you scan the barcode of any food label and it'll give you a health rating. Even that time, before I made the video, I was working towards that.
Oh, lovely.
So I would probably continue making that app. Then I would probably struggle with fundraising, and that's a probably different thing. My point is I would have done something or the other, because what you're seeing now is a result of me pivoting every 2 years for the last 10, 12 years.
Correct.
From a book to, I was in the restaurant space, barely anyone knows about it. I started like few restaurants in London.
Oh.
I did my MBA, then I was at McKinsey, and then I did this, then I spoke in a few public events. I was, for like 6 months, I was doing only public events, like, as a speaker. So I did a lot of very different things. I stayed in US, then UAE, then UK. So my point is that I would probably be doing something or the other. And hopefully, if not today, then maybe 10 years later, I would have probably at that time, I would say something which would appeal to people. But I think I would just keep trying. And like, they say that you put in effort and all you can do is increase the surface area of luck. When that luck will strike, you don't know, but all you can do is keep putting in effort so that the probability of success or probability of luck increases. So I think I would keep doing something or the other. Yeah.
So you said you ran a restaurant business, right? Was it the time where you also got certified as a health coach from Institute of Integrated
Around similar
Nutrition?
times, yeah.
And what is it with nutrition and Revant? Like this is 2015, right? This is right after you graduated from NYU Stern and even before your MBA. What piqued your interest to get into nutrition? This is 2015 we are talking.
Yeah.
A decade almost.
Yeah. So there are a few things. One, I'll say that I have always been interested in social impact. In our life, what's most important? In our life, what's most important? Health. One of the most important things is health. What is health? Determined by food. Strongly, like there are many other aspects,
Yeah.
but food is one of the aspects. And what is the food we are eating today? Mostly packaged food. And this is very different from what we were eating 200 years ago or 100 years ago. And what is packaged food doing? It's mostly lying to us. So by solving packaged food, we are solving one of the most important issues of life. Once again, life, health, food, packaged food lying. So this is something which I understood even 10 years ago, that when I was 22 years old, that packaged food is very important. No one's talking about it. So I want to learn about it. So even though I had a degree in finance, like an undergrad in finance, I did another 1-year course in nutrition just to learn about it. Because I was just very curious, why is no one talking about packaged food and how, whether it's mislabeling or how to eat healthy packaged food. I have studied from one of the best universities in the world, but I have no idea what food to put in my body. And which is one of the most important things in life. That's why even today I say, when I ask parents, what's the one skill you want your child to learn? They say coding. And I tell them, even more important than coding is decoding a food label. So if there are two skills, coding and learning how to read a food label, most parents would prefer their child to learn coding. And I'm not saying if you choose one, you can do both. But the point is, coding will take 2 years to learn. This will take 2-3 hours to learn. The food labels will take 2-3 hours to learn. And this you will use every single day or every single week for the rest of your life, every time you're buying something. This you may or may not use. You may even get replaced by AI or whatever. Even this AI will come in here as well. But my point is that we just don't realize how important that is. And that's what, like, even back in the day, I realized how important it was, which is why I want to do something in it.
My pleasure. So it's been 8 years since you published your book. And you yourself have mentioned that, you know what, I try to evolve over time and some of the ideas might become obsolete and I might change. So what are some of the key values or ideas that have actually evolved over a point in time for you now?
So at that time, I used to believe in excellence, that you should always try to be the best. And you should always push yourself to do difficult things and, like, prove sort of. Now I've realized it's not about being excellent. It's about being useful. It's very, very different. Being excellent is running a 42 kilometer like marathon. It's technically excellent, it's very difficult to do. But I would rather not do that. I would rather prefer being useful. That is also good, but I would rather try to use excellence towards benefits, societal benefit. And I feel that is one thing I would change. Earlier, I was in my book as well, I had written that, strive to be excellent, strive to be the best. It doesn't matter if you're the best or not. If what matters is whether you're useful or not. What the skill you're working towards, is it helping people or not? So, like for example, you can do the world's most difficult Sudoku every day. Obviously, it's a good thing. Okay, you're having fun and you're mentally getting sharper
Challenged,
probably.
yeah.
But if you're only doing that, every day you're coming up and you're reading the newspaper, you're doing Sudoku, and then if that becomes your primary, one of the most important things in life, then it's not useful. If you're using that learning from that difficult problem you're solving in Sudoku, and then you take that learning, and then, you are looking at, now in life, what's the biggest problems? And then you try to use that learning, what you learned in Sudoku, to solve one of the biggest problems in life. Then it's useful. But if you only do this, that is my challenge. Is that most people just try to become excellent or try to do something very difficult things. But they don't try to see, how do I use that skill which I learned in real life or to benefit people? and I know this is a very controversial thing to say because a lot of people will say उसको मजा आ रहा है सुडोकू सॉल्व करने में, उसको मजा आ रहा है 42 किलोमीटर भागने में. So I'm not saying it's a wrong thing. All I'm saying is it's sometimes over glorified. Like climbing mountains, like people will take an Indian flag and climb mountains in like many continents, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but my point is sometimes I feel it's over glorified because you're technically not benefiting anyone except for your own ego.
It's more individualistic in nature.
Yeah.
And
sometimes even not only the individualistic, they require sponsorship, and so you're taking money from the entire society to go do something which is not necessary.
Fair. And you spoke about excellence and being useful, right? I think is this the reason why you sort of connected Porter's 5 Force with your food wheel? And that seemed very interesting, right? It seemed like a Porter's 5 Forces but for eating. How did you come up with that?
Yeah, I mean, it was just around first instinct, like, what do we care about when we eat? So there were 4 things which I just thought that, what's the most common thing? The challenge is if you go to a nutritionist, they'll only focus on calorie and protein and things like that, but humans don't think in that way. The way we think is taste, price. That's the top 2 things, taste and price. Then it's around convenience and health. So that's what I just thought, that these are actually the choices which people are making, not calorie, protein and all that. That's not the first reason which is coming to most of the people in mind. So that is how I just thought of that. Yeah.
Lovely. And you have a lot of life hacks about remaining nutritious, right? Like you've mentioned that you munch on strawberries so that you don't have enough space or little to no space in your tummy to have anything unhealthy, which is when you started, right? What are some of the hacks that folks like us can use to get more healthy and more nutritious food?
So I think just
actionable ones, obviously.
So I think what you can do is just try to eat those foods which you like or which are also healthy. So if you just make a list of 10 foods which you like, which are also relatively healthy in nature, like, a lot of people actually like the taste of strawberry, as you mentioned, or blueberry, or like pomegranate, some people like it. So like try to make a list of whatever, or coconuts, or whatever other foods are, and incorporate them in your daily diet. The challenge is that the foods which we actually like, even that we sometimes don't have it as often as we could. So if you have foods which you like every day, you will leave lesser space for things which you don't like. So that is one thing which I try to do, is like, like whatever I like, even if it's a drink, like I like nimbu pani. So I have nimbu pani, like, relatively frequently, because that automatically reduces my desire to have a like soda, like, like to have a Coke or something like that. So point is, like, whatever you like, just try to increase. And one other thing which I learned recently, I used to never ever do calorie counting and things like that. Something which I've learned recently is that for 1 month, try to do calorie counting. Not for the rest of your life maybe, but for 1 month, just because it gives you an understanding of how much you're eating. Sometimes we just have no idea. Like, you think you're eating 2000 calories, but you're actually eating 3000 calories. So just 1 month, or forget 1 month, if you do it for even 3 days, then you just realize so many things. That, okay, that peanut butter spoon that I was just casually having had actually like 400 calories, like, if you had 3 spoons of peanut butter. Or like, there's so many things like that. And that really helps you understand how important portion size, and should you have more of rice or rajma, should you have more of this or that. That's another very important skill which I've learned, is that I don't do it every day, but because I've done it a few times, now that learning is there. So now I can use it whenever I want.
Got it.
Yeah.
You, just like how you equated, or you said being excellent doesn't always mean useful. A similar parlance is when people say, I'm really fit, but being fit is not equal to being healthy. So we've seen the likes of Nitin Kamath, who super fit, but had a very recent health scare. So what do you have to say about the myth that fitness equals health?
Yeah, fitness 100% is just one subcomponent of health. Is fitness does not mean health. Fitness is more around physical fitness and maybe even mental fitness, but there's just health is just too broad. It just encompasses everything basically, like like are you sleeping enough, how you're mentally, how you're doing, how your body, various organs in your body are. It's like just way more than having a six pack. Like you can have a six pack and 99% of the world will think you're fit, and you probably are fit, but you may have some major body, like some organ, like your liver may still not be good, or like some. The point is you are fit but you're not healthy, and that is, health is very difficult to achieve. Being fit is potentially possible if you eat the right calories, if you work out. Yeah, so I think in order to lead a fully healthy life, you need to be very, very, like the well balanced life, like it's stereotypical. I'm not saying anything new, but walking enough, being in nature enough, being in the sunlight enough, eating not as much, eating sort of at least 70-80% of the right foods. In the pollution which we have in India, I feel like it's, even the fittest people are probably not healthy. Like, because we just cannot be healthy. Like, how can you be healthy? Because you have no option.
You're just inhaling the same air.
Yeah, you're inhaling the same air, whether you are India's richest person or not. So that is the challenge. So health is very, very broad and very difficult to get.
So you seem to have a lot of philosophical opinions on a lot of things, right? What were some of those thinkers that actually impacted the way in which you think? Who are some of the most impactful thinkers that you had?
So in an Indian context, I would say Bhagat Singh. Definitely, I mentioned that, when he was 22, 23, I had read his work, and many people don't realize how intellectual Bhagat Singh ji was. Yeah. So, and he was a full intellectual. The letters which he's written from jail are unbelievable, and way, way, way ahead of his time. He's ahead of even 2024. He's probably living, like he was living in 2100 or 2200, like way ahead. Like even India today is behind what he was thinking 100 years ago. So that's one. I used to also like the work of Stephen Covey, although that's very management-ish or like skill-oriented. I like Peter Singer. I think in today's time, I would say Peter Singer is probably the person who I admire the most in terms of thought. Like his viewpoint around how to lead a life where you create the most good. That's his term, like which he uses, is try to create the most good you can do. And that probably has influenced me the most in the recent times. And I feel sort of sad that, if you ask 100 people for their role models, or if you ask even like 100,000 people for their role models, probably less than one person or two people will say Peter Singer. You will see hundreds of people probably saying Taylor Swift, or I'm not saying that's
a celebrity's name. Yeah.
I'm not saying that's wrong, but like people mostly say actors, and
Sports
some people will
folks.
say some entrepreneur who's made some, like Elon Musk, or like some people may say that, but very few people will actually look at thinkers. Yeah.
Was that the reason why you really stick to the term of conscious capitalism? Peter Singer's influence?
100%, like, strongly believe in that. And yeah, 100% very influenced by him. And he has very strong, writings around how, around conscious capitalism as well, and like how our consciousness broadens, like our circle of morality increases with every generation. So 100 years ago, people would only care about, suppose, men. Then the concept of caring about women was lesser. Then slowly we realized, no, okay, not only men but even women are important. Then we slowly realized not only women but even the life of a animal is important. Then we realized, oh, not only this animal but even that animal, the smaller animal is also equally important than a big animal. And like how we are getting more and more evolved. So yes, definitely it influenced me.
Lovely. So, any brands that you feel are doing really good work in terms of being conscious and being out there setting examples?
Very difficult, very difficult, because when you get very large scale, it's very difficult to remain conscious capitalist, because society unfortunately does not reward you based on that. There is no large scale brand like which will public will actually like be like, oh ye acha kaam kar raha hai, so let me. It's very difficult because eventually everyone is very price conscious, and there are so many brands which are doing fake CSR activities that even if someone is doing good work, it's very hard to identify whether this is done for marketing or whether they genuinely believe in it. In the US, Patagonia is one company which has done a good job with like being relatively conscious capitalists. In India, I mean, there's a brand which I am also working with, Truthin.
Okay.
They make this food scanning app.
Okay.
Where you scan the barcode of a label and it'll give you a health rating.
Oh wow. Okay.
So they've done a good job in India. So they are trying to find ways to monetize and remain, but at the same time remain true to their mission. So I think they are doing a great job, Truthin in India, but very difficult to find companies like that.
Fair.
Even if you think of something like a Wikipedia, I think Wikipedia is essentially conscious capitalism, although they are essentially a non-profit, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah,
so
they're an organization.
And unfortunately, no one pays them like $3 per month or whatever they write, 25 rupees. But I guess these are some examples. Wikipedia is another example which is doing great work in doing a very good thing and potentially making some money.
Is it because the incentives are wrongly aligned? Because in the end, it's all about managing your shareholders and living up to their expectations, right? I think that is the primary incentive for most companies out there. What incentives should be changed, or what incentives should be tweaked for conscious capitalism to be a norm?
It's first of all a very difficult problem to solve, especially depending on what sort of a country you're living in economically. So in a very economically advanced country like the Scandinavian countries, these things are much more possible. That you're thinking of both the people and the profits, because you have more room to do that. In a country like India, it's very difficult because the competition and all of that is just so high that if you're not, then you're going to get shut down. So it's very difficult. I think it has to come from individuals, that individuals are choosing their role models, their idols, their companies that they're buying from, which are doing better quality work in terms of their ethos. So if it comes from people and a large number of people, then the companies will also be changing. But it has to come from individuals first, I feel.
Got it.
And yeah.
So you talk about wingmen a lot and how they open up new doors for you. Again, who are some of your wingmen that have helped you grow? And second part of the question is, how do one identify somebody as a wingman?
So first of all, for the audience, I'll just help them understand what does wingman mean.
Sure.
Wingman, in the context in which I have written it in the book, is just someone who introduces you to new people and people who you may learn from and things like that. And it does not need to be a person. It can even be an institution or a college and things like that. So for me, wingman was like my MBA itself. So what in that itself acted as a wingman in introducing me to a whole set of various people who I learned from and who I connected with and who are still very important in my life. So that institution is important, but I just ask everyone, try to identify either an individual or an institution who will, or be a part of some club, if it's a sports club, which will help you meet 15-20 more people, or some sort of an, I think the challenge is if you don't have any wingman, neither is your friend making you meet new people, and even if they are making you meet new people, it's very similar to you. So there's no new person you're meeting, like net. So just try to find some group, whether it's a sports club, whether it's a college, whether it's some activity which you can be involved with.
Fair. And so I think we've almost come to the end of the podcast. So a couple of questions. Are you open for brand collaborations?
Yes, I am. But it obviously has to match my ethos as well. And so I have done a few brand collabs as well. I've been fortunate that, the people have been very, very accepting of what I do. And yeah, I just have a few things that it should net stand by what I support. I also ask companies that I want to say both positives and negatives. So if a company is only these 5-10 good things about me, then I don't like it. I try to say both what I like and dislike, even if it's a branded, sponsored post. And yeah, so I am open to it. Yeah.
So, and how does one reach you?
So you can reach me through Hashfame. So, my contact details and my team's contact details are there.
Lovely. Great chatting up with you, Revant. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.